Okay, so we're going to be talking today about why all atoms are neutral. Now, when we start talking about why all atoms are neutral, there's a lot to remember. In 8th grade science, we don't discuss ions or isotopes, so we are only looking at neutral atoms. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back through and we're going to draw our triple bubble, just like we have been. Remember, we use the same 3 colors every time we draw the triple bubble. So, we have our proton. We have our neutron, same size. Proton and neutron, same size. And then we have our electron up here. We've already learned some other stuff about our atom. We've learned where the nucleus is, and that's in the center of the atom, and it holds our proton and our neutron. We also know the charges of our subatomic particles. So we know that a proton's positive, a neutron is neutral, and an electron is negative. And we also know that the electron lives inside the cloud out here, or inside those rings and shells around the atom. We also learned to find the mass of the atom. We take our proton plus our neutron, and that tells us our mass, which we calculate in atomic mass units, also known as AMUs. So something we're going to add to this triple bubble today is this symbol. Now, that looks like a hashtag, and it is a hashtag, but it's also a number sign. And what that tells us is that we have the same number of electrons and protons. We always have an equal number of P and E. P and E meaning protons and electrons. The reason that our atom is neutral is because if we have, let's say, 10 protons, 10 positive subatomic particles, and then we have 10 electrons, we end up with no charge, no positives, no negatives. In every single atom that we look at, we are going to have an equal number of protons and electrons. If the atom that we're looking at has 1 proton, you should already know how many electrons it has. 1. Our total would be 0. When we start looking at the periodic table, we're going to be recognizing elements by their number of protons, and some elements can have 100 protons. But it doesn't matter, because if we have 100 protons, we already know how many electrons there are. This is going to get really important as we start moving on to the periodic table. This is something we really need to know, is that all atoms are neutral. In 8th grade, when we look at an atom, we know that all of our atoms are neutral. Sometimes you're going to have to start learning to figure out how many of each subatomic particle there is. If we know that there's 10 electrons, we already know how many protons there are. Our neutrons have a little bit of a different rule, and we'll learn that as we move into the periodic table. But for right now, something we really need to know is that all atoms are neutral, and that's because we have an equal number of protons and electrons, positive and negative particles.